cheer her on for her wedding. They were about to say, "I do." But Casey's plans had changed. The unsuspecting guests had no idea that the wedding was about to take a drastic turn. Casey knew her heart was about to be shattered into millions of pieces, but she wasn't about to let the man responsible get away with what he'd done. She knew exactly how she'd be taking her revenge. As she looked out and saw her parents' eyes filled with tears, she knew she had to make the most out of exposing her fiancé. When it was her time to answer the question given by the priest, she got out her phone and started reading aloud messages that only incriminated the groom, showing everyone who he really was. Casey and her husband-to-be had been together for over 6 years. She stated in an interview with the media that she genuinely thought he was the one when they met. Their families became friends and their lives were entwined. "I believed we would live happily ever after," Casey shares. But on the day of her wedding day, she got a message that instantly sunk her heart. On the day of her wedding, she got up early and began her preparations with her girlfriends at her side. They laughed and shared memories that they had all envisioned for that very day: the dress, the beautiful flowers and bouquet, the flowing champagne, and the excitement that filled the air. No one could have predicted how the day would end. Casey's discovery made her feel like she had just been stabbed in the heart. It wasn't only the pain of betrayal, it was the confirmation of years' worth of suspicions, doubts, and anxiety. Because the worst part of the betrayal was that it didn't catch her by surprise, no matter how deeply in denial she had been about what was really going on for all those years. Casey would never be able to forget the circumstances in which she met Alex. It was a year before she graduated from college. Alex, who was 2 years older than her, was already in grad school, studying to become a judge. They met at a house party hosted by a common friend, and from the very start, Alex made a strong impression on his future fiancée. She was attracted to him at the first glance. At one point in the night, the two of them made eye contact, and that's when it all began. Alex walked up to her and introduced himself. He asked her what she was studying and was pleasantly surprised to learn that she was in law school as well. But that wasn't all. Alex and Casey had a lot more things in common other than their studies. They both loved hiking, theater, and art galleries. They both were also opera enthusiasts, which was a rare coincidence considering they barely knew anyone else who was as into it as they were. Casey was over the moon. It was like they were predestined to meet. However, all that glitters is not gold. After some minutes of conversation, Alex walked away for a minute to talk to some other guests. Casey was in seventh heaven, but she would soon receive a word of warning. Right when Alex left her side, Casey's friend stepped in to let her know about something. There was more to Alex than his Prince Charming facade. Apparently, Alex was known by Casey's friends' social circle, and all around campus as a player and a womanizer. He was aware of his magnetism, and he used it for his own means. Casey's friend told her about many girls in their circle who could tell her about their experiences with him. But this didn't take Casey aback, more like the opposite. As a matter of fact, it only increased her interest and curiosity for that young man. It didn't take long before Casey and Alex went on their first date. That was just the beginning of a romance that seemed like something straight out of a movie. However, as it happens with every relationship, the honeymoon period didn't last forever. After approximately 1 year of dating, Alex's former playboy tendencies began worrying Casey. To put things in perspective, they had been dating casually for about 3 months before Alex agreed to be exclusive at Casey's request. Casey was absolutely elated when Alex told her that he wasn't seeing other people, and he didn't have an interest in doing so. But soon enough, she began feeling haunted by certain insecurities. Casey was well aware that Alex had been an eternal bachelor until he met her. She couldn't help but feel flattered by that. It felt like an accomplishment. However, she couldn't shake the fear that Alex might go back to his player ways. But was she justified in fearing that, or were they just her insecurities talking? Some of Alex's behaviors gave her reasons for suspicion. Every time he came back from work late at night, 1,000 undesirable possibilities crossed her mind. She often found herself smelling her husband's clothes before putting them in the washing machine in search of some infelicitous smell like some other woman's perfume. And a few times, she found something alarming. She smelled what she believed was the scent of a perfume she had never used before. The first time it happened, her stomach dropped to her knees and a shiver went down her spine. However, she didn't dare say anything. She just couldn't bring herself to confront the possibility that she might, in fact, not be the only one for Alex. But all throughout the years, she kept repressing those fears. She kept telling herself that she just felt paranoid and intimidated by Alex's past, and that him choosing her should be good enough proof that their connection was true. But that was until the day of their wedding. That was when Casey found proof of all the suspicions that had tormented her for years. Hours were counting down until she would say her vows to her future husband. But at that very moment, she had no idea that that would never happen. Her whole world would come crashing down in just a matter of minutes, but she didn't know it yet. Nothing would ever be the same after she checked her soon-to-be husband's phone. Casey was hanging out with her girlfriends in her hotel room while they were drinking bubbly. They were in a glitzy hotel room and felt like princesses. Casey's phone buzzed from across the room, and with a drink in hand, she went to retrieve it. She had been receiving messages all day from loads of people wishing her love for her big day, but this message was not in any way like that. "Phone is running hot tonight," said one of her bridesmaids as Casey picked up her phone. The text took her by surprise and changed everything in a heartbeat. The text message contained a series of screenshots from a number she did not recognize, and under the pictures, an accompanying message simply stating, "I would marry him. Would you?" The screenshots were of conversations between her husband-to-be and another woman. The text of the screenshots ranged from everything and even included selfies of the pair. The one in the picture was the complete opposite of Casey. The unknown woman had dark hair and olive skin. What was going on? Casey grabbed the phone and locked herself in the bathroom while she inspected every single screenshot. The texts the pair had shared went as far back as months, and some were only days before their wedding. Her brain could not compute what was going on. Still in her heart, she knew these texts were real. No one was playing a trick on her, or were they? Everything was all set up for their incredible day. The caterers were already serving food, and all the guests had arrived. Casey had no idea what to do, but the text kept swirling in her mind. "This weekend, you and I. It is on Hot Stuff. Bring your game," said one text. Casey could not believe her fiancé had been cheating on her. How could she get her revenge? Every word she read in the text was like a dagger in her heart, and her wedding was hours away. She couldn't cancel, so she broke down in tears. She told her girlfriends everything, and they all stood there in shock, but they had to do something. But what? Her bridesmaids insisted she call him immediately and tell him that she knew everything, but Casey was still too shocked. Still in shock, Casey decided to do the only thing she could think of. "I was going to go ahead with the wedding as expected and out him in front of our friends and family," she said. So she got dressed in her beautiful white gown and pristine flowers and made her way down the aisle. "My dream dress is now just a costume," she thought as she walked towards her cheating fiancé. As her fiancé looked at her, he knew that her face was not of an ecstatic bride-to-be, but he had no idea what was coming. "I arrived at the front of the room, took a big breath, and I faced our friends, our parents, and I told them the truth about Alex," Casey stated. As the time came for them to say their vows and their I do's, Casey whipped out her phone and faced the crowd. "There will be no wedding today," Casey announced. Every guest gasped as they had no idea what was happening, and more so, the groom had no idea what was happening either. He looked at Casey and grabbed her hand, which she quickly flicked away and continued. "It seems Alex is not who I thought he was." A ripple of shock went through the crowd, and the groom still tried to grab her hands. Casey dropped her bouquet, disguising the well-hidden phone she was holding. She read every single message that was in the screenshots, and with every word, the groom's face dropped. He had been caught and had nothing to say. He quickly stalked out of the church with his best man trailing behind him. But what was going to happen now? The groom's family looked on, horrified. They still could not believe what was happening, and neither did any of the guests. Casey thought she would have to explain a little further, so she took a deep breath and turned to face her guests. "I love all of you, and as horrible as this is, I'm glad you all are here. There will not be a wedding reception today. Instead, there will be a celebration of honesty, finding true love, and following your heart even when it hurts," Casey said as she faced the guests once more. There were awkward applauses and a little cheering, but Casey's bridesmaids were the ones clapping the most. They could not believe how strong their friend had been, and more so, she had continued with everything as planned, except the getting married part. That night, she celebrated surrounded by her family and friends, and even though she was heartbroken, Casey celebrated how she had almost made such a terrible mistake. She threw one heck of a party and everyone went home smiling. But what caused his infidelity? And how did she not catch it sooner? According to Dr. Rowan Burkhardt, there are two main reasons for infidelity. The first is what the cheater probably sees as a problem in the relationship, he states. The second is the strained party failing to have romantic feelings for their partner, he continues. These forms of dissatisfaction can lead to the maladjusted behavior of cheating on one's spouse. In the first case, a person can react to a problem by stepping out of the relationship into the arms of someone else, according to Dr. Burkhardt. And in the second case, the cheater needs to find this romantic connection elsewhere. This is when attraction for a person outside the relationship becomes all the greater, he explains. Casey had no idea her husband-to-be was a cheater. They had their problems like every relationship does, but when things got bad, she just endured a sleepless night and hoped it would be better in the morning. Luckily for Casey, she knew about his infidelity before the wedding. She went public with her story, and it quickly went viral. Casey's story made waves, and everyone shared their thoughts on the matter. Graham Houghton said, "A very brave woman who deserves, and will certainly find, someone better. I wish her luck and happiness." Will A.D. expressed similar sentiments, saying, "Wow, very strong and forward-thinking of her. Honesty is the best policy with self and others. Blessings all." Still, Casey explained, "It was certainly not the wedding day I had planned, but to our credit, it was one hell of a party." In order to protect the privacy of those depicted, some names, locations, and identifying characteristics have been changed and are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblances to actual events or places or persons, living or dead, are entirely coincidental.